IVM.
Hi, I'm Zarina Poonawalla, your peak performance coach, life coach, emotional intelligence practitioner, and NLP practitioner. I'm also the founder of Abso Expertise Unique, and my organization constantly aims at building leaders across continents. After having worked with so many dynamic business honchos, entrepreneurs, startups, CEOs, management gurus, parents, and student communities worldwide, I am convinced that every individual has unleashed potential. And all we really need to do is realize it. Watch the magic unfold, enhance quality of life, relationships, and professions. On my show, be ready for some riveting conversations with inspirational people, snippets, stories, and much more. So here I am on this exceptional journey to find empowerment and inspiration anywhere I can. Come join me on this breathtaking path of self-realization, potential maximization, positivity, and most of all, embrace your inner power. You are on your way to empowering yourselves. Welcome to the Empowering Series with Zarina Poonawalla. On today's episode, I'm in conversation with someone truly inspiring. He has not only fought all odds, but has also made sure that his visual difficulties do not come in the way of achieving his dreams and helping others to do the same. A torchbearer for creating awareness on accessibility and investor education for persons with disabilities. Please welcome Rahul Kelapure, who is the Assistant Legal Advisor in the Legal Affairs Department of SEBI. Hi Rahul, how are you today?
Hi Zarina, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me here on the show.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, Rahul. How have you been and how has pandemic life been for you so far?
Oh, pandemic is fine. I mean, in fact, of course, there are some changes in my life. Of course, I mean, I can't move around too much and stuff. But otherwise, in a way, it had helped me also because I have lost a lot of weight in this pandemic lockdown days. So, it's
Right.
been, in some ways, I've achieved few things out of the pandemic.
That's wonderful. I think it's amazing that people have become fitter and healthier staying at home. Some of them, while some of them have started binge eating. So you're from
Yes,
the fitter section, which is great for you, Rahul.
that's
Tell
right.
us about your journey. It's quite a story, and of course, I have some knowledge about you. You've come a long way, and you've made sure to help people on the way. So please tell us all about your journey.
Yeah, sure. I come from a place called Chandrapur.
Mm-hmm.
This place is near Nagpur in Maharashtra, India. So it's a district place, but it's a small place, and not many people even know about this place. So I was born there, and till my third standard, I studied in a normal school, and that is basically while studying that itself is a big story for me because initially, of course, the teachers weren't ready to take me in the school,
Mm-hmm.
and of course they had their own reasons for thinking about that. But at the same time, later on when I took admission in the school, they allowed me to kind of give the exam. They used to allow me to sit in the outside the corridor of the school, and then they would ask me to write the exam. Now for the
Hmm.
problem for me was that I couldn't even do that, and I since I couldn't see. So um, so the issue that time was if I couldn't read what is there written in the exam in the question paper, I
Hmm.
would just write some round, put something and come back, and therefore I
Correct.
would get very very less marks. And of course, my parents knew, of course, about my disability, visual challenge. And the thing is, how they got to know is also an interesting story
Please
because
share.
yeah, sure. So when I was about maybe a year old, they realized that I'm not crying when my parents are not allowed. Otherwise, the babies do cry when they can't see the mother around, and I
Right.
wouldn't do that. Say they were worried about it. They said, okay, now maybe something's wrong with him. So they took me to a doctor, and the doctor said, yeah, probably it looks like he hasn't developed his brain, probably. So we'll give him some tonic or some medicines for the brain development.
Okay.
right? And so they gave me some training, and they didn't realize that it could be a eye related issue, and sometimes I say it with some wit, that probably since I had too much of a brain tonic, because of that maybe I have got so much of brain. So after that I went on to get all the gold medals and all that stuff. So so that's how they got to know. So, and after my third standard, my parents got to know about the blind school,
Okay.
where they teach braille there, and those kind of, it's a special school basically,
Right. Right.
right? And then there I went to a place called Anandwan. It's a blind school at near Chandrapur only, of course. It's about 50 kilometers. And in my fourth standard, I actually started to stay in a hostel and
Okay.
started studying. So it was for a maybe 9 years old kid, it was a tough thing for me. And of
Of
course,
course.
there I learned a lot of life skills. I learned to clean my own room. I learned to wash my clothes, wash my utensils and stuff like that. So that is something that I realized that now that it was a very useful education for me. And then of course there I got the till my third standard I was below average student, but here suddenly I became a you know a very very bright student, right? So that is how it was for me.
Wow.
And I went on for good marks in my blind school days. And in eighth standard, of course, since the school was available until seventh standard only, so for me, the challenge really was then to wait what to do. So then I came back to Chandrapur back again, and I started studying in a normal school. So again, the struggle started because they did not know how to deal with the person with disability, especially person with the blindness.
Right.
So of course, there were issues of I didn't have too many friends. In fact, I used to be all the time sitting alone in the classroom. Even in the recess, I would just sit in the classroom alone. So all that stuff was there, and then that all affected my studies also. So then I got my studies. I was actually promoted in the school. I couldn't even clear the eighth and ninth exams normally. So I was promoted in the 10th standard. So now in the 10th standard, something happened. And in 10th standard, my teacher said, okay, Rahul, how many times you want to give 10th ka examination? And I was so taken aback in the classroom when this question was asked to me. In that anger, I also said, oh, no, no, I'm going to get a first class in the 10th. So
Okay.
she was furious on me. She said, "Oh, really? Are you do you? I mean, what do you think of yourself?" And all of that stuff happened, and I was really upset. I came home. I spoke to my mother. I said, "No, this has happened." So she said, "Now, since you have said this, so you might as well do that, right?
Right.
You might as well get the first class." And then I started studying, and then actually in my 10th standard, I got a first class, and way beyond the first class marks actually. So that was suddenly then a game changer again for me in the school, because till then that time, in fact, some people had again started to tell my father, some teachers over there in the school, that
Mm-hmm.
oh, probably he's mentally challenged,
Okay.
so all that happened. So in my 11th standard, but suddenly things changed, and I got a lot of attention in the school from the teachers and stuff. And in my 12th, I actually was a merit holder in the Maharashtra board. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was the thing. I mean, a person 2 3 years back who's got promoted, he couldn't even clear the exams, to
Right.
being a merit holder in the state.
Yes.
So so that was a bit of a journey for me. And of course, then after my 12th, of course, I thought, let me try and do something. So that time there were not many options available for studies for a blind person, since the
Right.
technology wasn't available much at that time. So I then decided to, instead of doing a bachelor in arts or something like that, I thought I might as well do law. And even if I don't get any job basis my law degree, I will at least get a job which is there for a, arts graduate. So,
Right.
so having those modest expectations from myself, I actually came to Mumbai. I actually I mean, I got the admission in a good law college because I had good marks in my 12th. So I got admission after my 12th for law, and there the struggle was another struggle was waiting for me here, because till that time I was in a small city, I was doing fine. Here suddenly in Mumbai there was of course a cultural shock for me, and more interestingly, till my 12th standard I had actually studied in Marathi medium all through, and I couldn't. I mean, of course, I had one English language subject, which was a basic English that they had, but I've
Mm-hmm.
never learned to speak in English or to do much in English. Basically, here everybody was talking in English. The professors were teaching in English, and all of that stuff was happening. So that was a bit of a, I mean, big challenge actually for me. And in fact, I'd called up my parents at Chandrapur when I was studying here, and I was staying in a hostel, and I'd called up my father and said, I don't think I will be able to clear this exam. And that time my father said, okay, so no problem. He said, it's okay. Even if you fail, we don't mind. But
Hmm.
you got to do your 100%.
Right.
Then
Right.
whatever has to happen will happen. And I'm so touched by that. Even now I say that because they're from a small place. They're not very well educated. I mean, they're reasonably educated. They're not those really people who would urban people and stuff. So, but then they had that kind of a confidence and that kind of a thinking. So I'm really touched by that, and I said, okay, fine. So then I started really studying,
Okay.
and of course I didn't learn English in that. But what I did at that time was I would listen to news on the radio. Okay, one news in Hindi, and the same news would come in English, one after the other. So I would listen to both the news bulletins. Okay, so I understand what is being said in the news.
Sure.
What's the news really? Yeah. So I actually started to do that, and of course the other thing was I loved listening to the cricket commentary.
Okay.
Yeah, so I loved doing that. So I used to listen to that cricket commentary a lot, and I would imagine that I am a cricket commentator. And
Okay.
Rahul here now, so how the psychology worked for me was Rahul doesn't know English, but the
Hmm.
cricket commentators do know, right? So,
Okay. Hmm.
so if I have to speak somewhere, I would think, okay, I am that cricket commentator. I'm not Rahul. So,
How nice. That's such a lovely trick, actually.
yeah. Yeah, so I actually started doing that, and it started working. And in fact, it started to work. And in one of my exams where my professor was writing the internal examination for me
Mm-hmm.
in my college, and I couldn't speak much. And something happened, and I actually told her, I said, see, I don't know English, I can't speak in English, so this is how it is. So she said, but no, but I can't even believe that what you're saying, you can't speak in English. She said, you speak a proper grammar, and the way you're dictating your answers to me for your
Mm-hmm.
exams, you're absolutely fine. Your sentence construction, everything is perfect. Who said that you you can't speak?
You can't
And
speak,
that was
right?
yes, and that was a first time when I realized, oh, now I can speak English. I know English now. So, that really
But to
happened.
be
And then,
honest, Rahul,
yeah,
just to add in there,
yeah,
to be very honest with you, I wouldn't have been able to guess myself in this conversation that you haven't come from an English speaking school in your earlier days. It's just impossible to tell because you're literally on point, not only with sentence construction, but your pronunciation so clear. It doesn't sound like,
yeah, that's
sometimes you can
all
tell a
thanks to
person.
cricket commentary.
I believe so. I believe so. Yes. Please go on. Please go on.
Yeah. So, and then as the days passed, and
Mm-hmm.
I then went on to be a gold medalist in law. So, from the person who couldn't even speak English, who couldn't even, speak to anybody, because I was thinking that I was from a small city and all of that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
to being the gold medalist in a very prestigious law college of India is probably, I think, second ranked college in India. So from that to this was again a quite a journey for me.
So that is quite an incredible journey, Rahul. I mean, it already looks like there's so much that you've gone through in this process, and maybe your parents too. And that kind of brings me to understanding that education is a sector where we really need to consider how we're handling differently abled people, right? And giving them the kind of education that they require without the kind of struggle you have been through. What would you
Yes.
say? Isn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely.
You've done, I think, outstandingly well for yourself, because a gold medalist and a merit holder and whatnot, and of course a fluent English speaker, such a great communicator. How do you manage to keep learning and building on yourself?
Oh, well, I think that is something that I've been always wanting to do. In fact, thanks to the technology nowadays, because earlier I was completely dependent on somebody helping me in reading the books for me, or or earlier I would study on the cassettes, whatever is recorded. If someone records it for me, or things like that.
Right.
Uh, but now, for last about 10 years or so, things have changed, and there has been technology available. In fact, for the computers, there are softwares which are called as the screen reading software.
Mm-hmm.
What they essentially do is they read whatever is there on your screen, and they kind of speak. Of course, it's a voice, but still it's understandable. Once you get used to it, you can understand that, and you can adjust the speed. There are different commands that you got to learn, and you can do almost everything, whether it's email, internet, or Word, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever it is. So it works on that. And more recently, there has been a great development in terms of technology for in the mobile phones.
Right.
So now, for example, I'm using the Android phone. What it does is that, again, there's the same technology which is inbuilt by Google, which is given by Google themselves, which actually reads out whatever is there under your finger. So you can almost do anything, whether it's Facebook, WhatsApp, and all of that stuff, including your maps, or booking a cab, booking a hotel, booking a whatever it is, basically. So that has really helped me to really study. And in fact, I'm happy to say that that actually makes me read those books probably 4 times or 5 times faster than
Mm-hmm.
anybody else. Now I'll
Correct.
tell you, yeah. Now I'll tell you, to put that in a perspective, I can read about 200-page book in less than 2 hours,
Yes,
word to
yes, you
word.
can. Right.
Yeah. So because it's a technology, the software is going to read. I mean, you can increase the speed and it will read out. And I can now, since I've got used to it, I can listen. I mean, I just have to listen to that. It's just that I have developed that ability to listen faster with the concentration. So I think those are the things that has really helped me to keep learning, and it always keeps me on the toes, so that I can on my toes, so that I keep learning new things, and I really enjoy that.
That's wonderful. And I believe that with all that learning, you have also been mentoring a lot of people with, disabilities, if
Yes.
that's a word I can use.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, PWDs generally known as
Correct.
so. And you've been handling and helping people and mentoring them to make sure that they have a good quality of life in some way or the other, right?
Yes.
All
So
right. Please tell us about that.
sure, absolutely. In fact, there are two, three kinds of things that I'm doing. The first thing is, when I realized the potential of these Android phones and the screen reading software, that the potential that it has, which can really change the lives of especially the person with blindness or visually impaired.
Right.
Um, so I've actually started to train them using the Android phones effectively. Now, once they start using the phones, they can use a lot of applications through which they can start reading books, or they can use social media. They can call, I mean, all sorts of, I mean, they can have their social life. And, lots of people, in fact, have started to kind of date on the different applications that they
How
have.
nice. That's
Yeah.
interesting to know. Yes.
Yeah, so because and see that's again a part of life. I mean that sometimes is missed out when we talk about persons with disability. People say, oh no, he needs a job, he needs education and stuff, but probably we miss out on these finer things of life.
Yes.
So that's one thing that I do, of course, for them. So basically, I have created few tutorials, and I also kind of take trainings for them. So that is one thing that I am doing. The other thing that I, of course, do is I kind of train them in terms of, in fact, I create the books for them in this soft copy, like the books that they can read. Now, there are a lot of books which are still not available digitally
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
soft copy. So I kind of either get them scanned or and then convert them through OCR, optical character recognition system, so that the book becomes readable with the application, whether it's on phone or on computer. So these people can actually read those books on their own, whenever they want to.
Sure.
And I've also been doing that for Indian languages specifically, because there are a lot of English books available online or on different platforms in the digital format. But the Indian languages books are not so much available. So that is my intention, that even the Indian books should be available for reading. So that is something that I am doing.
That's
And
brilliant.
and the third thing I am doing is actually I am taking training sessions, actually training them in terms of the financial education for them, because it's really important for a person with disability to understand what's finance, how to manage their own finances on their own, how can they use technology and be independent in taking care of their finances.
Right.
Now, it could be that they could be working somewhere, or they could be having their small, they may be running their small business, or whatever the small work that they have. But they got to be on top of their finance, and that again, I realize that there's not much awareness over there. Therefore, I decided that I've taken a lot from the society. Society has really helped me in every step of the way in my life. So I thought maybe this could be my way to just pay a little bit back to the society from my side when I have reached a particular level in my life. So, I mean, I think it would be great if I could, contribute a little bit to the society.
But that is very, it's thought provoking. And like I already mentioned, that you're a torchbearer. And this is so important, Rahul, because maybe a lot of people are looking at doing great work and responsible work, but in the other sectors and other areas. But this is something that you're looking into, and having gone through those difficulties yourself, it definitely is something you connect with very closely, right?
That is correct. Absolutely.
Now, education is something you're looking into, and financial independence, that is absolutely mind blowing, because I've not really heard of too many people have a conversation and, stimulate a conversation regarding this area for people who might require that kind of training and mentoring that you are giving them and providing them at this point. But Rahul, do you also feel that there is a disparity in job opportunities between those differently abled to the abled in that sense? Do you feel the job opportunities need to get better, or there is a disparity? Because, of course, statistics show us that, but what's your take on it?
Yeah, definitely there is a disparity over there in that in this regard, because see, many people probably don't even know that there is this technology, as I was explaining you, the screen reading technology that's
Right.
available, and that probably that person with disability could do probably a better job in terms of delivering the work. Um, but even the employers are not really aware of that, and many of the times they have many misplaced perceptions at times that
Yes.
oh, he would require too much of a support, and whether we would be able to do that. So they have their genuine concerns. I totally agree, and I think uh, the reason really is that they're not really aware of the fact that it is possible. Um, so I think that's the reason why there's a disparity. Having said that, again, since this topic of finance is so close to my heart, and I'm giving the financial training is so close to my heart, I actually realize that there is a huge potential for persons with disability to work in the financial sector. Now, there are two reasons for that. One thing is that this is basically the financial sector is technology driven. So, if a person with disability is able to, use technology effectively, I think they can really do wonders in this
Yeah.
field, and they don't have to really move around or run around. They can do the jobs which does not require too much of running around, and they can either do it from their home. If when we are talking about, especially when we are talking about these pandemic days where everyone is working from home,
Exactly.
and this is going to stay, the working from home stuff is going to stay here. So I think if the employers are giving this opportunity in the financial sector for the persons with disability to work, I think they would be able to do a much better job. And I see there's a lot of potential for them to really work, and even the employers get benefited. Of course, they get people who are really efficient in their own ways, and there's far less attrition rate for persons with disability. So it definitely does. There's a business case also for employing a person with disability.
Correct. Correct. Yes. And it's interesting that you say that the fact that you mentioned the pandemic and you mentioned work from home, because to be honest, everybody has learned the art of working from home in the last few months and they've adapted to that. So if there is an amount of inclusion in the way we do things and giving
Yes.
people, let's say equal opportunities with a little bit of uh, equipping them to be able to get equal in certain areas, it would
Yes, I
really
think
make a
we
difference.
could call it adaptive, use a little bit of adaptive technology and
Yes,
adaptive
yes,
mindset.
correct. An
I
adaptive
think these are
mindset. That's
two.
fantastic. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, Rahul. But what do you think? What kind of commitment do you reckon could help in these areas? What kind of commitment? I love the fact that you mentioned attrition rates would be low. That is something that one must look into, and organizations should pay heed to that, right?
Yeah.
That was a brilliant point, actually. But what kind of commitment do you reckon could help in these areas further?
I think if each of these, especially if I'm talking about the financial sector, whether it's a BFSI sector, I would say even if all the organization kind of decide, okay, in each of our office we will have at least 2% of employees who are persons with disabilities. I think that
Mm-hmm.
would go a long way, because if they have 100 employees there and 1 or 2% are disabled people, I
Yes,
think
yes,
that would go a long way, because then the other employees also would get to know about each other, and this will actually create a lot of bridging. It'll act as a bridge for them.
yes,
Able-bodied people also would be more comfortable in dealing with disabled persons and vice versa.
true,
And
true.
there are lots of these misconceptions. In fact, many times I hear a lot of interesting stuff, and people kind of now they are friends, so they ask me. But many times, people have asked me some funny, interesting things like, "Oh, how do you dream?" And they have, I mean, they are curious about
You've
it.
got
And
that kind of a question. Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah, how do you
interesting.
dream? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how do, kind of, or in fact, a lot of people ask me, "Okay, how do you shave?"
Mm-hmm.
you know um, and in fact, so much so, some people ask me funny things like, when you eat, how come you put your spoon in your mouth and not in your,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So these are some funny things I hear, and it's really wonderful when people ask these kind of questions. So that this actually creates the bonding between the two. So so
Right.
I think that really bridges the gap.
It does.
So I think if the employers are really able to have those people, and since now technology is available with a very little extra, or in fact sometimes even no extra cost, most of the times it's available at no extra cost for the employer. I think they could definitely consider doing that. It's just that they, if they really want to do that, it would be wonderful. Even they would enjoy that, doing that,
Right.
going through that procedure.
But even from an economic perspective, Rahul, I did a bit of research on this, and there's only a 0.5% of the staff in India's top firms with that come from PWD, that is persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
0.5% in India's top firms, which means that amongst the people who have disabilities, they have to land up doing a government job, or they have to not be able to do a job, or they don't land up getting jobs for the rest of their lives. And this is a research somewhere 2018-19. So I think
Uh-huh.
what you're suggesting and what you're proposing can actually not only just bridge that gap, but also economically be very beneficial for a country like us. It'll be very nice and very inclusive as well,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right?
You're bang on there.
Yeah. And okay, I had this a personal question. Since you mentioned it earlier, I mean, right away, I want to ask you this. It bothers
Mhm.
me sometimes because I've noticed this as well, that people with any kind of different abilities, they can be dealt with by people from their house or their family or their friends or their colleagues that typically work with them or know them well. But people outside of that, they land up looking at them or speaking to them in a different manner. Sometimes it's not very appropriate. Now, obviously, your friends ask you questions, so it's fine to answer that. Correct. It's comfortable. But sometimes there are people who do not know how to talk to a differently abled person. They don't know
Yeah.
how to communicate with them. For instance, I'll talk about myself. I recently had a coaching client, and they said that, I want you to talk to one of my family members who lives in London, but they cannot speak.
Yeah.
So you can do video sessions with them, but they cannot speak. And I was a little taken aback because I am not so good with sign language. So I
Yeah.
decided to study sign language to be able to communicate with
Yeah.
this client of mine, so that, I can bridge that gap from my end. Now, there is only so much that that person can do after a point.
Correct.
I have more responsibility in this case, right?
Yeah.
So, what I'm trying to ask you here is, how should people learn and understand how to behave appropriately around people and make them feel normal, like everything's normal? It's good,
Yeah.
it's okay, right?
Absolutely. In fact, Zarina, thank you so much for asking that question. That's a very, very good question. Amazing question. Thanks for asking that. Um, you know, uh, in fact, I'll tell you a joke which has happened with me. So, Zarina, I'll tell you a joke which has happened, sometime back with me, a few
Hmm.
years back actually. I was sitting somewhere, and I was with a girl, a friend, basically. Okay, and she was there
Okay.
with me, and there's this third person, and the third person asks my friend,
Hmm.
okay, will he have sugar in the tea or no? Now,
Hmm.
you may realize, okay, I mean, I was thinking to myself, of course, I didn't say that to him,
Right,
but
right,
I mean, you could ask me, okay, you could just say, okay, Rahul, would you have sugar in the tea or no? Right? It's
right.
a very, very simple question, but I've many times realized that, people are uncomfortable sometimes
Hmm. Hmm.
even to have to have a normal conversation. Now in your case, of course, you spoke about this person not being able to speak, um,
Right.
but here, I can't see, but I can, of course,
Exactly.
I can tell the person. I mean, the person could either take my name or touch my arm or wherever, or something like that, and just
Yes,
ask
yes.
me the question, and I could
You can
answer.
answer that basically. Absolutely. You can
Yes,
answer
so I
it.
could, yes, I could answer. So I think these are the, sometimes what we could probably do is, if it is great if we, if we speak directly with the disabled person instead of speaking through someone.
Hmm.
It doesn't look good. I mean, and on part of the disabled person also doesn't feel good about himself that, okay, the someone else is talking for them, you know,
Right.
uh, that. So I think just these kind of a small things, if we can be mindful about, I think that will go a long way. In fact, as you said, things like, so I think we could speak more directly with them. That's one
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
the other thing is that, we got to be clear that, they are also normal people. They are also people with all
Exactly.
kinds of emotions, good things, bad things, all that stuff. Right. So as a human, when you start looking at them, I think there's absolutely no difference. In fact, many a times when people speak to me, they say, "Oh, all this. I mean, how come you know about all the Facebook trends and the Insta and all of that stuff?" I said, "Yeah, because So what I can see, I mean, I can read whatever is there on the what's happening out there in the world. So they are also normal people. It's just that at some places and in some respects, they do their things in a little different way.
Right.
I think
Right.
once we realize that, I think that should be enough. And then when we are talking through that context, from that context, I think it will be great. I mean, there'll be a lot of understanding between the people over there.
I agree. But if I may add to that, Rahul, what I realize is, this normalcy that we're talking about, maybe I reckon it comes from the fact that, when we see people like that, I'm not particularly talking about myself, but through general experiences, including your
Yeah.
own,
Mhm.
I have realized that a person starts to sympathize. And instead of sympathizing, what you need to do is empathize. Like, hey, you know what? They'd like to be treated normally. That's how it's going to work. You don't have to feel sorry for them. They
Yeah.
know how to live their life. Okay. So when I'm
Correct.
having this conversation with you currently, I am not for one moment thinking about anything to do with disability. We're highlighting the topic because it is important for people out there to understand the importance. But to be
Absolutely.
honest, it's two people having a conversation. That's what it
Correct.
really is, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think the whole idea, I mean, I'm talking to you like I would talk to anybody else on the show or even otherwise on a phone call. So
Yes.
you don't need to go out of way to make somebody realize that there is a problem, like asking your friend for that sugar or,
Yeah.
things like that. You don't have to make somebody realize it. You just go with the flow and be normal. I think that is what we have to focus on, not to sympathize with people. Instead, just empathize with them a little more if they're different
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah. Because they have the same issues and
Exactly.
problems and all of that stuff that everybody else have.
Right.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you can have your blind friend talking about a heartbreak and you can give him the same advice you
Yeah.
would give a person who can see. That's it.
Yeah.
That's basically it, right?
Just like love guru.
Love Guru. Exactly. That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, yes, this is important. And I hope people out there get some information from this and, understand that we're just supposed to be more inclusive and everybody just needs to work together on things. I think it'll change the whole communication and the way we deal with things.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
Okay. So Zarina, I want to ask you now something.
Sure.
Okay, we have been having this interesting conversation, and one perspective our listeners have from my side of a person with disability. Now, I want to get your perspective as to how did you deal, especially when you sometime back you spoke about your client who needed some coaching, who
Yes.
couldn't speak.
Yes.
If you could just tell me a little bit more, how was your experience, and how did you, deal with that, and what was overall your experience? If you could just elaborate that I would be, that'll be interesting for me to know.
Of course. So the first thing I did was, Rahul, these clients of mine in general have been with me for a long time, and their families, it's a big business family, and they're spread around the globe. So a lot of them are with me on coaching since many years. And when they approached me with this particular member of their family, I said, maybe I'm not equipped, and maybe I'm not the right person. Maybe you should look for somebody
Yeah.
who can communicate or understand their communication. And they said, no, we want you to do it. And then I realized that this is an opportunity to learn exactly this bit where I can include in my coaching sessions, how to manage coaching. Why just people who can speak or who can see or who can walk? I want to be able to do that with people who cannot do some things and still be able to help them just as I would help somebody who can. And I realized that, this was a pressing opportunity in my face. And although it
Yeah.
was quite adverse and I had to really rigorously, it took time, it took patience with my client. And my client was actually very patient with me because they knew I was doing this whole sign language bit for them for the first time. So in fact, he's grown to be one of my closest. And, even if they have a small problem in the middle of the night, and obviously there's a time difference, but at any point in time, I can't have a phone conversation with him, but he will just quickly do a video call and, tell me what he's thinking, and I will quickly tell him what he needs to do. And that's it. Right. So what I realized is that it is difficult. It is difficult. But as long as you consider that everybody deserves to communicate and everybody deserves to be listened to, you will find a way to do it. And that's what I try to do, I believe.
And thanks for doing that, Zarina, because, I really acknowledge your commitment, for the people there with you, and especially in this situation, it is agreed that of course it's a difficult thing for you to do because it's a new thing for you.
Yes, it is. And, it's not like playing dumb charades the way people think, Rahul. It's not like, the way we think that, I'm just doing actions and explaining something to you. It's not like that. Sign language is literally an entire language. You have alphabets, you have numbers, And to learn that and to make sure that you're getting fluent and better, it requires a little patience. But I get it. It's worth it. It's totally worth it. Everyone should learn it, I feel.
And this is really wonderful. And if we have those maybe 100 Zarinas in India, probably that the world wouldn't be the same place, probably. So thanks so much for doing that. Actually, I'm really thankful to you that you've done that.
No, not at all. I think it's
definitely requires patience.
It does.
But it definitely also requires the commitment that you showed.
Thank you. But I honestly feel that I think these are our responsibilities as the people of society who have no issues in many things. So we should be able to understand our privileges, acknowledge them, and then use them responsibly. And I think that's the only way we can include. So why not? I'm upset with myself, Rahul, that I never landed up doing this before, to be very honest with you. I should have learned these things much earlier in life. But nonetheless, when opportunity knocks, we've figured it out. Well, I want to know, Rahul, what is this one belief that you particularly swear by in life?
I believe that if you have something less, in whichever way it is, you got to compensate with something else so that you can remain in the race and probably win the race.
Amazing. That's amazingly put. Beautiful words.
So that is, I think, required because we got to, and everybody, have some, whether it's a apparent disability or or it is not apparent, whichever it is, but all of us do have some or the other kind of a disability. Some people are scared of dogs, or some people are maybe scared of a particular situation. Maybe some people are scared of driving. So they are also disabled in their own way, right?
Right.
So
right.
So we have this kind of so I have a disability in terms of my eyes, right? So I have a blindness. So I have some limitations. So everybody does have limitations with that disability. And as I said, if we are able to compensate that disability, that thing that you have that limits you with something else, I think we are all here to win the race of life.
That's beautiful. To be honest with you, the fact that we all sit together in one room someday, hypothetically, if all kinds of people, diverse people with different abilities or disabilities sit together in a room and have a heart-to-heart conversation, they will all have the same problems. And that is how human we all are. So I believe that if you learn the foundation of humanity, you will not look at everything as an ability or disability. It's just difference, that's it.
It's the difference of you are living our life in a different way.
Truly.
Yeah.
And Rahul, what are these couple of I'd say, pearls of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Oh, I, you know, I have lived my life. So whatever I have done, I've always come to see that life doesn't remain the same. I mean, it never is the same. There are ups and there are downs. And, that up or down, whichever it is not going to stay permanent. So always be mindful of that and, live your life. I think through that one can be really grounded and keep on achieving new heights in life. I think that's the one thing that I would want to say. The other thing that I see is that learn from your past, but don't always connect your future with the past. You know, it's not really necessary that whatever has happened to you in a particular circumstance will always happen that way. So be open, be available to take new opportunities in life.
Excellent. That's really wise. That's really wise. Very sage. And lastly, Rahul, I'd love to end this conversation with our last question. And I hope you're ready for that one.
Yeah.
All right. So, Rahul, what empowers you?
Oh, see, to me, contribute in people's life. I will be contributing in whichever way in people's life. I think that really empowers me a lot because whichever way it is, whether it is through my training people, whether it's me working in my organization effectively, and making a policy for the securities market in India, whatever way it is, but that contribution in people's life really empowers me a lot.
Absolutely amazing and very heartening conversation. I'm really glad and I really thank you for being on the show today, Rahul. It's been fantastic. Such a free flowing conversation and so much that we've actually spoken about that really has some meaning to it in not only today's time, but in the future as well. So thank you so very much for being on the show, Rahul, and all your invaluable insights, everything that you have shared from deep within you that I'm sure that a lot of people out there are going to get empowered by your story and all the thoughts that you have.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Zarina, for inviting me here on this show because, and giving me this opportunity to have this kind of a free conversation because this is sometimes, a sensitive topic also in
Yes.
some ways. But you have put this so beautifully in a such an amazing conversation that I had. I really enjoyed being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahul.
If you liked this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Intel, for supporting us. So Jasleen Royal came on Storytellers and Storytellers this week with Vineet. It was a really interesting conversation. Do definitely check that out. Hamsini Hariharan is back on the Pragati podcast after an extended absence. Hamsini was one of the original hosts along with Pravan, but she was unable to continue. But we're glad to have her back. She's talking about her experiences since she left. She's been studying in China. Definitely check that out. You'll enjoy that. Abhijit Ganguly was on Cyrus Says a couple of weeks ago, and he had such a great time, and we were so happy to have him on that we asked him to join us for Cock and Bull, and he was on this week. Do check that out. And lastly, I'd like to mention our Tamil show. We've been doing a show called Kadai Podcast Punyan Selvan, hosted by Kavita Jiva. She has been phenomenal. She's rewritten the stories in a way which really, they speak to a modern audience. But Punyan Selvan is over, and she has started a new story, though. The new story that she started is Sivakamiyan Sabatham. I'm sure I mangled that pronunciation, and I'm sure you'll love it if you're a Tamil speaker. Do definitely check it out. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Beta, did you know 79% of all scientists in NASA are Indian only?
देखो, इंडिया में टैक्स सिर्फ मिडिल क्लास भरती है. Everyone is just enjoying free यार.
आजकल के youngsters are only interested in partying and enjoying. उनको देश की पड़ी ही नहीं है.
बेटा तुम बस शादी कर लो, उसके बाद तो you can enjoy life like anything.
I will tell you what this country needs. This country needs 15 years of dictatorship. That is the only way to become a superpower. See the Chinese, how much they've progressed.
सुनो, तुमने ये WhatsApp forward देखा?
So what's common between all of these statements?
They're all absolutely rubbish.
Fake WhatsApp forwards that spread like wildfire.
And statements that defy any logic.
We are here to debunk them all.
Way of family WhatsApp groups, worst nightmare. Where what happens when you read a book.
Basically, we're just a bunch of guys who want to cut through the bullshit of everyone saying this, how it won't be true.
So that the next time someone confidently squeezes out some WhatsApp or Twitter BS, you can look them dead in the eye and go, Uncle, please sit.
So join me, Joel.
And me, Tushar.
Every Mondays for a fresh new episode of Uncle, Please Sit.